fun. People are like, wow, getting all that stuff. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. I am super excited to have this conversation with a couple of favorite students and now alums, but we're very, very excited to talk about transfer planning today. And so we'll first do an introduction of the students that we have with us today. We have Lillian Rodriguez, who graduated from Mendota High School in 2017 and graduated from IVCC in 2019. She's a first-generation college student and is currently attending Northern Illinois University School of Nursing. Lillian understands how intimidating navigating the college experience and process can be like, so she's really excited to be able to share advice and things that she picked up along the way. And the reason why she feels where she is today is because of the support that surrounded her during her time, not only at IVCC, but during the transition to NIU. We're excited to have Lillian join us. She excelled during her time at IVCC and was named the New Century Transfer Pathway Scholar. So what that means, she was our top student in the state of Illinois, and a very, very cool way to represent not only IVCC, but the state of Illinois. She also was named the 21st Century Scholar. And not only did she extend her intellectual abilities in the classroom, she excelled as a student leader, and we are so lucky to have you. Welcome, Lillian.
Hi, everyone.
Devanshi Patel was named salutatorian of the LaSalle Peru Township High School class of 2018, finishing second in a class of 253. She just graduated from IVCC this May with an Associate of Science degree and will be transferring to NIU in the fall to continue working on her undergraduate degree in biochemistry with a minor in biology. While at IVCC, Devanshi's incredible command of various subjects made her a true academic standout. She served as a peer tutor for 2 years, assisting students in chemistry, biology, anatomy, and physiology. She was well respected by her peers, and staff and faculty learned to take notice of her industrious nature and drive to learn. Devanshi was also named as IVCC's Foundation's 2019 Co-21st Century Scholar and was selected as the winner of the coveted William and Diane Taylor STEM Scholarship to Northern Illinois University, worth more than $25,000 towards her junior and senior years. We are so excited to have you tonight with us, Devanshi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Sorry about that, you guys. I did not share my screen earlier, so now we can see who we're talking to. So just a reminder to those that are checking, maybe this is the first episode that they're checking out. These are some of the topics that we've covered since we started in June. It's crazy to say June now, since we're into July. And if students, anyone that's interested in just learning more of these topics, we are recording this and uploading it to our YouTube channel, IVCC Eagles, and of course going live on Facebook. So if there's something that you wish you would have, learned more about or hope to check out, you can see the schedule there, and you can always send us a message and let us know if you have any specific questions. So every Wednesday at 6:30 is when we try to cover a topic with some of our alumni, recent alumni, just because a lot of that experience is fresh. And so we're hoping that their experience, their storytelling can really help students along the way. But we'll go ahead and get started. I keep forgetting that I need to introduce myself. My name is Ezrat Loveland, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Admissions, Records, and Transfer Services.
My name is Gracelyn Quessy, and as the Student Recruitment Specialist at IVCC, my job is to encourage prospective students to explore the educational and career options that we have on campus. Whether you're attending college for the first time or whether you're coming back to finish what you started, we're here to assist you in your educational goals and to help you out with whatever else you need. And we'd like to also take this time to remind you that as your local community college, it's part of our mission to serve as an educational and career resource, not just for our students, but for the residents of our district. Once again, welcome Lillian Diwan. We are so happy to have you with us today.
Hi, thanks for having us. Thank you.
So we always like to start off with this question to kind of break the ice and get the conversation going. Why did you choose IVCC?
So for me, it was honestly the better financial decision. And it was really close to home. And I didn't know where to even start in like the college process when I was in high school. So my counselor just asked me like, hey, where are you going? And I just said, oh, I'm just going to Ivy. But in the end, I'm really glad I did. So.
So for me, the reasons are also similar. It's affordable and it was close to home. And I gotta say that it was a really, really good decision because I think it's a really good transition process from high school to 4-year. And I'm still very glad that I decided to come here.
Yeah, that's very important to address to the transition process. I feel like that's a big part too, is that students are coming, you're either coming straight from high school to college or taking your time kind of transitioning, figuring out how it's working, figuring out your own study habits and how that works. And so I think that it's a great pathway to transfer and everything. What did your process look like when you were researching schools to transfer to? Like, what characteristics were you looking at for a school? Did you know where you wanted to transfer before you started attending IVCC?
So honestly, for me, I felt super behind. I remember like being in high school and like I would just remember my friends like not being in school because they went on college visits with their parents and their families. And being like a first generation student, my parents honestly don't know anything about like that kind of realm. Um, and so when I was like a senior in high school, I just like, I would hear, oh, like go to these orientations. Um, and it was just like really hard for me to kind of like go about that by myself because like I've never seen it done before in my family. So for me, I kind of had to be more of like a trailblazer in that aspect. Um, but yeah, it was like I'm really surprised I've really gotten this far coming from not knowing anything, which I think should be, it's not a bad thing. I think if anything, I wish I would have had someone tell me like, hey, I really knew nothing going into this process as well, and it's not like impossible to not succeed. So.
For me, I definitely did not know where I wanted to transfer to when I started at IVCC, and the transfer process was also very hard for me. I didn't know where to start. But once I did begin on it, I focused on whether or not I wanted to be in state or out of state. So I decided in state because affordability, right? After I decided on that, I kind of looked at the prices and locations and stuff. And at the same time, other people, it seemed like they had everything together, but I feel like I didn't. I didn't know where to begin with. I didn't know if I was moving in the right direction. I didn't know what the result was, you know? But once I started looking at like the programs they have, the clubs, organizations, if I know anybody who already goes there and what they have to say about the programs and everything. So it was a mixture of everything that I could find on their websites, basically.
Thanks for sharing. I know one thing that when Graceland and I and Quentin go out to the high schools, we're really trying to talk and work with any student that's willing to listen to encourage them to start the shopping, checking out different campuses and seeing, what feels right. And so, we're curious, and you guys kind of mentioned this in your responses beforehand, but did you visit multiple campuses before making the choice to attend your transfer college university, or was it just kind of like, oh man, it's my, I'm at IVCC, it's like my second semester, I better figure something out?
So for me, during my senior year of high school, I visited a few campuses. And so when I started at IVCC, I kind of remembered that experience. So when I started looking at places to transfer while I was at IVCC, I kept that at the back of my mind, and then I only visited NIU, and then I put everything together, and I was like, okay, so I didn't like those, but I liked this, and then so NIU ended up being the only place I visited, and that's the one that I picked.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. So I didn't like plan any college visits. But I remember IVCC offered like the free college visit trip. You could go with a group to NIU. And that was just like the thing that was most accessible to me. And it just like made me feel more comfortable, and it was like less discouraging to go on a visit because you're finally making your way through IB. You're this like big bad honcho woman, and now you have to go to a new institution where like no one knows you. So you kind of get humbled back to that position where you're like, okay, now I have to make this other big decision. Like it's a big part of your life where you're going to transfer to. And IB, them literally just providing me the ride and the meetings at NIU, that honestly is what influenced me the most to attend NIU. And then I'm really glad I did.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I can recall too that experience of not really knowing where to go. And I just knew I wanted to get away. And I'm sure that's probably, a similar feel for many students. And to say too, I'm wearing my Eastern Illinois University shirt, trying to represent. That's where I ended up transferring, and I had no idea where it existed, but I knew that I wanted to get kind of far away, and I'm really happy that I did. So this might be difficult to recall, but what did you know or hear about the transfer process before you started planning?
So I personally didn't know much before I started planning. It was just kind of like, try this. If it doesn't work, try something else. Um, it, I didn't really have guidance. I seriously didn't know how to begin. So what I ended up doing was looking at how my peers were handling the transfer process, how my friends were going about it, what kind of emails go through, and what kind of emails we get from colleges or even IVCC, or the deadlines that we hear about. So I think that was the hard part, getting started. But I looked to other people around me for guidance and the information.
Yeah, likewise. I really didn't know anything about, I knew I was transferring, but the transfer process itself was kind of scary because I would just remember seeing my friends looking at apartments, like, where are you going to live? And I'm like, oh, I haven't even thought about that. I obviously need a place to stay. So I wish that could have been, looking back on it, I wish I would have just known more about that. Um, and I just really clung on to the emails that I was sent, like, okay, do this at this time. And that's what I really used to kind of base my transferring process off of.
So there are so many resources for students looking to transfer. There's like websites, advice columns, books, all that kind of stuff on how to choose a college. What resources did you actually utilize when you came to transfer planning? And also, on top of that, where would you recommend students to start?
Yeah, so the college visit was like my first step of thinking about where I was going to go to next. And I really hung on to my mentor, which was Azret. She really helped me get in line. Like, I knew I was transferring, so I need to look at what programs I would need to look into. And so she would look up programs for me. She would print things out for me saying, hey, you might want to think about this. This institution has these kinds of things. But I think finding a mentor to show you the ropes is really helpful, especially if you don't know a lot going into the process. And what I found out is, like, I really recommend seeking help. I don't like seeking help usually because I don't know, I don't like being like vulnerable like that. But honestly, seeking help with someone you trust, a lot of people are willing to help you. You just kind of have to make the first step in yourself and just ask.
So I decided where I wanted to transfer, I think after my first year, so during the summer and the fall semester, my second year. Um, And what I used was I used the college website, so NIU's website, and basically that's the best place you want to use to find information because it's coming directly from those colleges, right? So what I did was I would look at the prices, I would look at like the tuition rates, I would look at the clubs and organizations that they have. Um, I would also try to see if I can find any contact information for counselors, because that's a big one, like transfer counselors or club advisors or anything like that. Because if you're interested in something, you want to reach out, right? So try to look at the websites of the colleges first, and then I would say focus on mentors, like Lillian said. Look at the people around you because they are definitely willing to help you. And the biggest part of this planning is you want to figure out whether or not you like that place before you actually transfer and physically start college there. So it's the best thing to use as many resources as you can.
And I'm sorry, just another part of the question too. Those are both great answers and great places to start for people looking to transfer. But when was it again? I think Lillian might have mentioned it, but when did you guys finally decide where you wanted to transfer?
So I decided to transfer to NIU after like the college visits and just realizing that was like the best option for me financially. It was like kind of close to home, so I felt more safe in that kind of environment. So that's when I made my big decision, said, okay, I'm going here. Um, and yeah, that's really like what it took for me to kind of evaluate like envisioning like a future here.
Was that like your first year, second year at IVCC?
That was after my first year, so I believe it was my sophomore year at IVCC. If I could, I would recommend researching it in high school. Hindsight now, but definitely the sooner you could do it, the better.
I also decided after my first year, and I was looking at places, I think my first year, and then when second year started is when I was like, okay, this is definitely where I want to go.
That's awesome. I think what I tell students during any kind of visit, I'm like, take advantage of going to visit these campuses. One, we get paid to roll out the red carpet for many of the students and families. And two, always check the student union or where students hang out. And this might sound weird, but you gotta kind of creep and see, could I see myself eating, sitting with these people, and start thinking about that, because that can really tell you what to expect from that institution. So thank you for sharing. So transfer counselors are amazing, whether you're working with one at the community college or at the university of your choice. So I'm curious, when did you guys start connecting with the transfer counselor? And what I mean by that is, kind of establish a relationship, asking those specific questions.
So one of the first times I talked to a counselor was at a open house for NIU, and it was just this big room with a bunch of people that you could talk to for different things. So I remember talking to one counselor about credits that will transfer and everything. And another time that I contacted a counselor was when they actually visited campus. Once in a while, they will come on campus at IVCC and then hold a few meetings so you can go in, or you can reach out before they get there. So I remember that I talked to them then too. I don't remember specifically what I asked, but I do remember that I have talked to them. And another easy way to get connected to them was through their contact information on the websites. So I know I've definitely emailed them a few times too.
My first interaction with the counselor was actually on a day that IVCC had many admission counselors from different institutions. They had them all in the guidance counselor area upstairs. And so I applied that day. I showed them like my grades And then right away, like, I got accepted into NIU. They waived the fee, which was great. The fee is like another thing that's kind of discouraging because I remember it being kind of expensive, but thankfully IVCC did waive that for me. And so from there, my counselor asked me, okay, what field do you want to go into? And so I applied at the Health and Human Sciences portion or college at NIU. And then from that point on, I didn't really have any questions at the time because I was just like, okay, I'm in, like, now what? But then she would just like send me these emails, right? And they would come a lot. Kind of redundant, but I'm really glad that they were because that just helped me check off lists like, okay, I need to turn this in at this time. But that was like another thing that I'm really grateful that IVCC did have because otherwise that's just, in my mind, that would have been just like another process for me to go on by myself. So I'm just like really glad that IVCC did provide that for me.
Thank you for mentioning that. So you know, many students that might not know this, but we are lucky enough to establish a on-the-spot admission day, and it'll be interesting this fall on how we conduct that. But what we do is we invite a lot of our state university feeder schools, and they spend a day, you know, a couple hours, and we promote starting around September, letting students know that that's an opportunity that they can go to the counseling center, set an appointment to meet with one of the university transfer counselors. And what's great about it is it's about 15 minutes. And, you know, you need to provide your transcript, you need to complete your application, but they work with you, they talk to you, they look at your tuition fee, which can range from 40 to like, and we're really excited to continue sharing that. And a lot of our transfer schools work with us and getting that out there to our students. So when you're talking with your counselor, your transfer counselor, even IVCC, you know, was there a piece that you just didn't know what to ask, or did you know a little bit of what to ask? And I'm now seeing that that's not the question that is up here, but that kind of goes back to the original question. Did you even know what to ask when you started that conversation with a counselor?
So I personally had no idea what to ask. I was confused about the entire process, but I couldn't really get a question out of me, and I couldn't really understand what I was confused about. And I don't specifically remember what I asked them, but I have like a few examples of what you could ask your transfer counselors. And one of them is, what do students need to submit once they're admitted to your institution? What kind of documents? One of them obviously is the transcript after your semester ends. But there could be more, you know. And another question is like, how many credits do students need at your institution after they transfer? Because I know, like for me, I have a certain amount of credits that I have to fulfill when I go to NIU. And one more, like if you have specific questions, you can just ask a transfer counselor, and if they know the answer, obviously they'll get you the answer to you. But if they don't, then they're more than likely to direct you to a contact who actually does. So it doesn't hurt to ask a question, ask whoever is available, and they're going to guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, like Devanshi said, I was totally in the same boat. It's like, congrats, you're accepted. And you're like, okay, I really have no idea what to do next. For me, my questions were more of like based on the specific time. So I was like, okay, I need to fill out this. When do I need to fill it out by? Who do I send it to? Is there anything else I need? And then thankfully they did help me with that. So there's like a lot of things that I didn't know would have been part of like the process of truly admitting yourself into another institution and transferring. So that included like getting vaccinations done at this point, send in health insurance cards, those are just little things that I really didn't even think about because I don't think those really as emphasized when I went to IVCC. That or the transition was a little bit more smoother back then, but yeah, those are just things I had at the time. To say that I had a list of questions ready for them, I didn't. I was just kind of scared but happy to be there, truthfully. But yeah, I think just having, if you can't, if you don't have the opportunity to plan it out within time, just ask questions at that time that fulfill what you need to know. So just ask questions that lead you on to your next step. Just say, okay, cool, what's my next step? I think that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, it's definitely important to just keep the conversation open and to just feel comfortable asking them. Really, like, you know, there's so many different questions you could be asking about. What do you want to know? What's most important to you? And their job is to answer those questions to make you feel comfortable about their school. So we've talked about so many different variables and factors that students face when choosing a college: location, affordability, where, you know, availability of the program they want to pursue. In the end, what ultimately drove your decision to choose the school that you did?
So I chose NIU. I think the greatest influence was the trips that IVCC provided to take us from IV to NIU. That gave me the most experience. And I really did like the environment. I liked the diversity that is here at NIU. That was something that I was kind of looking for. I just wanted something different, I just wanted a different environment that I didn't really get to experience that much back home. And then again, make sure the programs that you're looking to apply to are well accredited. So the NIU School of Nursing, it's a really competitive school, but they really do have some of the best graduates in the area. So in the end, that was what helped me choose NIU.
So for me, it was a mixture of different things. One of them being that, like Lillian said, the diversity in a different field than at IVCC. And when I visited, I remember the open house was a great experience because I saw so many different people, and it was at the time where people were actually in classes. So like all the normal students were walking around, you know, about doing what they usually do, and you're just like kind of weaving through, looking at what they're doing. And another factor was close to home, affordability, but also I knew that I wanted to go into the chemistry or the biology department. And from what I've heard from peers and everyone, it was like all good stuff. So I was like, okay, so I see all these pluses, and it was just all the reasons added up to me going there and deciding to go there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to think about when you're considering that, and I'm glad that you guys made the decisions and you seem very happy with them. What is something that you wish you knew about the transfer process before you took the first steps yourself? So just look back to, you know, I'm about to start this. What would you tell yourself?
I wish I would have had the better hindsight to know what it really takes to move to a different institution. So as far as living arrangements, that's something that goes into moving, right? But it's not as publicized as, you know, the admission itself. So after meeting up with my counselor, I got a lot of emails about, hey, these dorm rooms are available. And I did visit a few dorm rooms, but in the end, I think NIU is very quick to kind of move you into the dorm rooms, right? But you need to have resources outside of that to tell you, hey, dorm rooms can be very expensive. Meal plans are another thing that are very expensive. So just to kind of have someone tell you in the background or someone on your shoulder, just letting you know, like, hey, it would be cheaper if you moved into an apartment that's close to campus, so you do get like the college experience. I wish that would have been like another thing that that's on like the little checklist for yourself when you're researching it. I know a lot of people obviously think about that when they're applying for colleges, but for a first generation student like me that really didn't know much going in, I wish someone would have been like, hey, have you thought about where you're going to sleep when you're at NIU, right? Like the most obvious things, like I wish someone just kind of would have kind of brushed up on with me.
So for me, I wish I would have understood that there are so many people around me that know so much, and that you need and you should ask whenever you're confused. Because like I said, I was definitely confused. I didn't know where to start. But then think about it, you're on a college campus, you're at IVCC, you're surrounded by all these people who are either going through the same situation as you or have been. So obviously they have experience, they have knowledge, so it's okay to ask people, it's okay to send emails, it's okay to pop into their office and be like, hey, I had a question, can you just like help me figure this out? I wish it was a little bit more emphasized, and I wish I had emphasized it enough too.
This makes my heart so happy, just knowing that, it is very difficult to ask for help, but to hear from and ask more question, hopefully that encourages any student to pop in anytime, whether it's our counseling center, whether it's Graceland or my office. We're here to help, and we're ready to, assist you along the way, because it can be very confusing. And one of my next questions is, I served as a transfer counselor when I worked at Eastern Illinois University, and I remember looking at the checklists and transfer checklists and giving them to students, and I would even look at it and thinking, oh man, do first generation students really know what that means? We love jargon in higher ed. So was there a specific step that you're like, what does this mean? Who can help me with this? And if you're willing to share.
For me, I think the most confusing part is like, what is transfer planning? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Is there like a checklist that I can find online that's like universal and works for every situation? Or am I just trying to like fit this to my circumstances? And like you understand, some of us understand that like, hey, I gotta submit my transcripts, but then you forget about, hey, down the road, you're going to have to sign up for orientation. You're going to have to sign up to do this. You have to make sure you have a living situation. You got to make sure that you submitted all these other documents. So the confusing part also was like, after you get admitted, what do you do next? Do you just wait for another email? Do you wait for somebody to call you up and tell you what's going on? Do you do it by yourself? Are you supposed to log into a portal, look at the checklist that they've given you? So I feel like there's a little bit confusion about what the student is supposed to do after getting admitted. A lot of us just focus on getting admitted and picking a program or something like that, right? But we don't focus on what's going to happen in between getting admitted and actually starting classes.
Yeah, I totally agree with Devanshi. Going about like getting transcripts transferred, right? So it's like, okay, got my transcript. It's like, and then no one tells you, okay, now download into a PDF, send it to this building at this address. Like, it's just like a lot of little steps that no one really holds your hand to kind of help you do. That's why my favorite approach is, and I think NIU had a very good approach of, okay, they sucked you in whether you liked it or not, and they told you, do this right now. I thought those approaches are the best. I think, especially for first generation students, they really do tell you, they send you emails, do this by this point, right? And a nice little tip that I do remember, it's like, okay, give yourself a couple business days, right? Because you don't want to miss a deadline. If you mail something, right? Give yourself about like a week to mail it before, a lot of things really aren't really done last minute anymore, which is something that I had to adjust to, especially come from IVCC when everything was done. It could be done all in that same day. And And so back to the question as well. So for me, I thought counseling appointments were super confusing. I I would sit there, and I remember my first time I was there with my mom, and my counselor's like, yeah, so make sure you get all these prereqs done. And I know it's like common lingo they use because they know the process so well, right? But I'm just sitting there, I'm like, what does a prereq mean? I literally didn't know what a prereq meant, you know, which you would have never thought, right? Coming from me with a person that has earned like so many accolades. So in those appointments themselves, don't be afraid to say, hey, stop. What does this mean? Or stop. When do I have to do this? Or stop. How do I do this? So don't just kind of take in everything that everyone says. Make sure that you really understand it before you're left to do certain assignments by yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Asking questions and stopping people, like, what does that even mean, is huge. I think I still do this. So it's something important, a good skill to continue to really use. So, another conversation that is happening not only with the community college professionals, but also colleagues at the university transfer level is, when do we start this conversation? I know I mentioned sophomore year is kind of where we would like to encourage students to start searching and looking at colleges and universities, but what advice would you give a high school student thinking about the transfer process? And you can think of it as, you know, what is something I wish I would have known starting just thinking about college in high school?
So I would say that whenever you're comfortable is when you should start thinking about the transfer process. Obviously, the earlier the better, but you definitely don't want to push it too late either because you don't want to be overwhelmed by all this decision making and deadlines and everything that's just coming on top of you, right? Plus, you have schoolwork to worry about. So try to get on top of it as early as possible. But also give yourself breaks when you're doing this research because you want to make sure that the college that you pick is a good fit for you. And I would say to, of course, use all the resources that you have around you. Use the websites for sure, and I think that's the most of it.
Yeah, so for me in high school, I really didn't have anything prepared. I just knew, okay, I'm gonna go to Ivy because that's what was attainable for me. If I could, I would recommend starting, you know, as early as you do feel comfortable. Um, and that's to say also, even if you don't know where to start, that's totally okay too. Uh, that was like the boat I was in. It's okay to not know what's really going on. Just know that you do want to do something and kind of commit to it. Um, and then my other advice would be I really recommend just going to your community college, IVCC, first. I think IVCC, without their help, I don't know if I could have transferred to a 4-year by myself because the transfer process, it's like a monster within himself. So for IVCC to dismantle that process and help walk with you through it, that really encouraged me to keep going.
So there's no way that, going back to high school, there's no way that the graduating class of 2020 could have predicted that their high school experience would end this way. If you're a member of this graduating class, how do you think that the college decision process would look differently for you and your peers?
The whole pandemic has been very difficult, and I honestly can't imagine being in high school and thinking about transferring to a 4-year. I know they do a lot of orientations online now, but being able to have that in-person experience was very influential. I probably still would have gone to NIU, even though, even if we did have a pandemic back then. Um, but I want to give like a little advice, like don't let it discourage you. Everyone's in the same boat. People even in college now, you know, having many classes move online was difficult. So just don't feel like you're in this alone. But yeah, biggest advice, clench onto your emails. Try not to miss anything. If you do, because times are so strange right now, I don't think penalties are as strict as they were. Deadlines aren't as like crazy as they were back then. So definitely don't feel alone, and seek advice and help if you need to.
So definitely this is a tough time for all of us. We did not know this was coming. But I think the biggest thing to remember is that we're not alone. There's so many other students and even faculty, professors, everybody in the education system who has to change the ways they're teaching or studying, right? So one of the biggest things, like, how are you going to study if you're just confined to one room the entire day for all these different classes, right? You don't get that experience of going out, being in a classroom, being with your peers and everything. So you want to kind of manipulate your study space so it's comfortable. It's something that you want to be in for a good part of the day. One advice is like, don't be next to your bed, because that's, or don't be on your bed, because obviously I would only want to sleep if I was doing that. I would probably log out of the lecture, which is probably not a good idea. But ask help from your friends, like how are they handling this, how are they setting up their study schedule, how are they working with deadlines. And if something happens with, let's say, online lectures, email your professor or email anyone else who could help you or would know. So just remember that you're not alone, and then everyone else is in the same boat and you can help each other.
That is great advice. Wow. Gosh, I wish you guys were like my friends or older than me and I was listening to all this. Lillian, this is a specific question to you. What was the transition like? And was it easy to get involved and adapt to the academic standards? So you're looking and you're thinking about fall 2019. Can you share more?
Yeah, so right off the bat, first day of school, right? I did notice I was super lost, man. I think I Ubered to like almost every class, but that's okay. It's just another story to tell, right? But okay, so actually in the classroom. So for example, my first semester, I took anatomy and physiology here at NIU, and I noticed like, okay, the studying was pretty heavy, but I don't think it's nothing that IVCC did not prepare me for. When I got my first grade back, my first big grade back, you know, that's like to see what you're made out of, right? See where you stand. I noticed that I performed exceptionally well. And when I would talk to my peers, I noticed that some of them were, you know, failing these tests, which I thought was like crazy because at IVCC, I brushed up on my time management skills, my studying skills. And what I ended up doing was I helped others in my classes. So like study groups, I would kind of host these study groups in my apartment, and we would study anatomy together. And this is where my kind of training from being a peer tutor at IVCC kind of kicked into. But yeah, I think that the quality of students that IVCCs, their alumni, are just very well prepared for the next institution that they plan on going to. I would say I even outperformed many of my peers that had gone straight to a four-year institution, which I think is amazing considering that I did not pay four-year institution prices at IVCC. And in the end, I don't feel like I even lost out on a lot of experiences either, because being at IVCC, that was such a growing period for me, and I'm so glad I went there. And then as far as getting involved on campus, so at IVCC, I remember, being a president of many, or being a member of many different clubs. And in those clubs, sometimes it was more of being like a one-man band and having to schedule appointments, meetings by myself. And then what I noticed when I got on campus is like, hey, there's a lot of people like me that are trying to do the same thing. So what I did, I knew I wanted to get more involved on campus because I've been predominantly a very studious student for the majority of my life, and I really wanted to be able to branch out and build the connections for the rest of my life. So what I ended up doing was I ended up joining a multicultural sorority. It's called Sigma Lambda Gamma, and that was probably one of the best decisions I made coming onto campus as a transfer student, because even though IVCC prepared me academic-wise, I still need to build relationships with my peers around me. And I felt that joining a sorority that hosted the same kind of values that I have in myself, that really helped me branch out in this community that is DeKalb, and that is, Greek life. In my sorority, we do a lot of community service, which I was huge on at IVCC. And instead of, me being oftentimes the only person that's conducting and organizing all these events, now I have this little like posse, and they're riding with me, they're helping me, organize all these events. And it's awesome to find a group that is, that has the same kind of eagerness that you have, the same kind of giddy attitude that you have. And I'm really thankful that I did join a club. And it doesn't even have to be Greek life. There's so many other clubs that NIU has. And sometimes I just go to meetings just to go to see what they're about. I've gone to meetings for people with disabilities, and I learn more about their culture. I've gone to American Sign Language meetings. And the great thing I liked about being at NIU was they're always advertising these kinds of things, whether it's on social media, as Devanshi mentioned before, the NIU site. And they have all these meetings where you can just learn so much about so many other people. And that, I think, just going to a meeting, even if it's by yourself, a lot of people are there by themselves. And even if you are the only person that doesn't have necessarily acquaintances that at certain meetings, it's okay. People love your presence. They truly appreciate you going. They love seeing allies. They love seeing friends that support the causes that they're so strongly advocating for. And I think that is a very beautiful thing about being here at a four-year institution. So definitely when you're on campus, branching out can be kind of scary, but please do. You will make friendships that will literally last you the rest of your life. You will accomplish goals better together. So yeah, get involved.
Oh, I love it. Yes, I totally agree. You just like sold me on going back to school. I feel like I miss every minute of it, and getting involved and learning more about yourself and leadership skills. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Lillian. And the next question is pointed more so to Devanshi. And I am so excited for you. And I know everything's changed and things are slightly different, but I'm curious, what are you nervous about? And I guess what goals are you thinking about once you do get on campus, whether it is virtually or face-to-face?
So one thing that I am nervous about is how the classes are going to look like. Since I've been at IVCC for 2 years, I kind of got used to it, like the flow and everything. So now I'm wondering, how is it going to be different at NIU? Is it going to be taught in the same way? Am I going to feel differently when I'm in a class there? Like, is it going to feel the same as IVCC, right? I just hope that I can adjust to whatever it is that's going to happen. And before the pandemic started, the goal was to join different clubs and everything, right? But now we don't know what involvement's going to look like in clubs. I do have ideas of what I want to join, but I'm just going to be waiting for the emails or anything that they post to see what they're doing. I was hoping to join like community service clubs, research, or anything that I can find. But obviously we want to keep in mind COVID and go along with everything, keeping in mind safety and everything. But I know that even though I'm transferring and it's in the midst of the pandemic, I'm a little bit confident that I can do well because of IVCC. It was, since, like I said, it was a transition period from high school to a 4-year. So I learned how to talk to my professors, how to ask them for help, basically how to navigate through all these different processes. If I needed to talk to an admissions counselor, I would just, find their email, look it up, talk to them. Or if I needed to talk to financial aid, I learned to do that. Or if I needed a copy of my classes again or something, right? Scholarships, I knew where to find them. And all those things kind of taught me how to navigate college life in general. So I'm assuming and I'm hoping that all that I learned at IVCC is going to help me at NIU. So I'm confident and nervous at the same time.
Thanks for sharing, and I can totally feel that with a lot of students. But anytime I do reconnect with our alumni, it's telling that they feel comfortable at their transition, they're at their transfer university. And I love hearing the stories that, like, professors like me because I know how to act or talk to them, and that might be something scary. So it is absolutely wonderful to hear your guys' story, and also knowing that you guys are first generation college students and what that can be like. And it feels like a monster step. And so we appreciate the time that you took today and providing this information. We want to share also that you can connect with Gracelyn or myself at any time. We are happy. We're not scary at all. And we enjoy creating these relationships with students. So please connect with us. There's our email addresses. We also cannot thank Devanshi and Lillian enough for just spending this an hour or so sharing their experiences. And we really hope that you take away some things that they shared that they wish they would have known, or maybe even listening to some of the risks that they took. And I'm going to go ahead and transition over to Gracelyn.
Once again, thank you guys for joining us tonight. And we'd like you to join us next Wednesday, same time, 6:30 p.m., to discuss the importance of getting connected and finding your resource networks on your college campus.
Oh, can't hear you, Ezra. I think your mic is muted.
I'm muted. Thank you so much, you guys. What'd you think?
It went really well. I liked it.
Yay! Good. Yeah.